and I just heard it today in preparation for this podcast with you two. It's called "To Be a Man," and it's by a rapper named Dax, and the infamous Hootie and the Blowfish, Darius Rucker, and it's got like 22 million views on YouTube. And it's called "To Be a Man," and in the song, it's like, you know, to be lonely is a lonely road. Being a man. That you're not cared about. Nobody cares how you feel. They just kind of care what you provide. To be in a house that you built and not to, and to feel alone in your own house. And you know, one of the things I just kind of did some self-reflection, and what I don't ever try to do is make light of somebody else, how somebody else feels. You know, I've never felt like that in my house, but then I start trying to wonder, like, did my dad feel like that in my house? You know, in his house, you know, because my dad's kind of quiet. And in the song, it was saying that, you know, the dad kind of walks around and he's sitting at his table, and it's just something that we've never heard from. I don't know if you guys heard that from your parents, but I was like, is this just something new, or men just being honest about their feelings? Like, what have y'all seen that has to do with this? And Kyra, I'll let you go first. Is this something new?
So I think historically, men are always, they're the breadwinner. They have to be strong. They have to, provide for their family. And I think as time has gone on, a lot of men have realized that, like, I can be strong. I can still, support my family financially, emotionally. But again, it encompasses everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I can communicate a little bit better. I can support my family, but also too, I can be in touch with my emotional side. And it doesn't necessarily take away from my position as head of the household.
Gotcha. Ion with Dr. Ion, and I'm saying that I know you don't care, but I respect the hard work that you just put in recently, my man. And I want to honor that. I know you don't care, but I salute you for your hard work. Uh, so to be alone in a home, like, have you ever met with somebody who you feel like to be alone in a home, like nobody cares? Was that foreign to you?
No, I mean, I think that's very common for many men. And as Kyra just stated, this notion that men can be in touch with their feelings is definitely something that's, I'll say, new
Mhm.
or changing. As she stated, historically, we were just there just to do a few things. And if we had feelings, we kept them balled inside. As I, look through social media, whatever,
Yeah.
tons of posts, saying, men, we take the brunt of everything. We don't complain.
Yeah.
We just keep going. Also reminded of a Drake lyrics from way back. He said, "I never am alone. I just always feel alone."
Mm.
And so, I think that a lot of men, family men, could relate to something like that. Not actually being alone in the house, but definitely feeling alone, not, I guess, feeling comfortable or as comfortable sharing their feelings.
So let me ask you this: as we are celebrating Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, what do you think the shift has been? What do you think the change has been? Why do you think, like, now at this point we're having a lot of these conversations? Kara, I'll let you go. What do you think that's come from?
I think some of it has come from the pandemic, right? So, during the pandemic, we were by ourselves. We were able to process information a little bit better. So I think, as we're coming out of the pandemic, again, people are learning more about themselves. They're learning more about how they're feeling, how their feelings affect kind of their overall well-being. And so, now that, things are opening up, people are like, oh, okay, you know what? I can express myself a little bit better. I can communicate a little bit better. And it doesn't feel bad. And it doesn't take me away from who I've always thought myself to be. It's just a different layer of myself, or a different, a version of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Mitchell, what about you, buddy?
Oh, I agree exactly with what she said. Definitely, the pandemic changed a lot of things, but also I think that exposure to different things for men, social media, it gets a bad rap, but social media has shown, I guess, men expressing themselves in a very positive light. also, allow men to reach out to other men in different groups or different settings like that. And to see that, there is a tribe for me, there's a band of brothers somewhere out there that looks like me, that thinks like me. So yeah, I think what the pandemic definitely, caused us to reflect. And then once we started reflecting, we saw that there were other people out there that reflected as well.
One of the things that's going to be, I think, special, I can say special, I think it's going to provide a lot of information and a lot of healing to men as we started this podcast, this segment number 3 off a little different. I usually do an intro and some more stuff, but I think with just the severity of this topic, we've already started. It was supposed to be something that we introduce the two of you and myself and the name of the podcast. But I think because of the severity and because of what I saw earlier, we've just kind of jumped into it. But I do want to take an opportunity to introduce you guys and not jump backwards. Let's just stay in this very true, authentic space that we're in. And so we have my man, I've known forever, Dr. Charles Ion Mitchell. He's a licensed clinical addiction specialist and just got his doctorate not too long ago, the Coping Center. And then we have one of mine. Now, Dr. Charles is one of mine too, but we have 2 separate football teams. So there's still this divide. But I love his wife and his kids. But Kyra Royale and her family, she was the first person I ever got to do premarital counseling with in these very uncomfortable wicker chairs that I don't know how her and Jermaine stayed in it. But she's the co-owner of Your Path, Your Journey, Your Healing Health. She's PLLC, life coach, and psychometrician. And so she can, did I say it right? Yep. So she can do surveys and testing and all that good stuff. And that's dope. But let's just continue down this path. I just like what we're doing. As somebody has done counseling for over 20 plus years, I do, as a pastor, understand there is a difference between spiritual counseling and clinical counseling, which you two provide. And I don't ever try to get into an area that I'm not equipped to do. I know there's some things that are spiritual and there's some things that are clinical. And I always tell people with men, there's 3 reasons men usually come and sit down with old Pastor Nate. Number 1, they've done something that they're in hot water and they want to sit down and have some counseling. Number 2, they're in hot water and their wife has said, listen, if you don't go see Pastor Nate, we're done. And so then they come see me, or their wife or their significant other, they've done something and they want Pastor Nate to come and tell her she's wrong. But men just don't generally come and sit down and talk with me. Even for premarital counseling, I know it's going to take about 2 sessions for them dudes to kind of like me, or to want to be there. They don't bring their own book. Their wife, their fiance or their wife, they got their book in their purse. It's like, here, and they got their book. They ain't looked at the book all week, or she's handing them a pen or something. Now with Jermaine, because he's just so laid back and so cool, and he's got these Eric Sermon eyes during the whole premarital count. I didn't know if he liked me or not, and we're really close. So why can you say men generally come and sit down and have a conversation with you, Dr. Ion? I'll let you go first.
Well, I would say the same reasons. They've messed up, or someone has referred them. I get the most referrals from people's wives, from people's mothers. Fortunately, my practice is all Black men, and so I'm lucky for that, blessed for that. And you'd be surprised how many people's wives call on their behalf to schedule an appointment for them. And then, lastly, they're trying to, make some things work. So I think the same reasons why they come to see you, same reasons why they would pick up the phone or send me an email to schedule a call with me.
And one of the things that I have to let the sisters know is like, Pastor Nate, I need to come in and sit down and talk with you. And I was like, is your husband coming? Is your fiance coming? Is your brother coming? I mean, your boyfriend coming? They're like, well, no. And I said, well, let's all meet together, because when a brother comes in my office behind these doors, he has to feel like I'm getting a fair shot. Like, it's not this pastor here and she's already given them the information. And so sometimes that can kind of be sticky. Pastor Nate, she said, Pastor Nate, let me tell you what's going on. I was like, hey, let's all get in here, because you want this brother to feel like we haven't had an initial consultation or conversation before you get in here, so they can feel like it's a safe space. And that's just for anybody that I counsel, so it can feel like a safe space. Kyra, why would you say 9 times out of 10 people come to see you, men come to see you?
I mean, I would agree. It's generally the same things. One of the things I will point out, they do come to learn a little bit more about how to better communicate.
Okay.
But again, the reason for them wanting to communicate better is because something has happened within the relationship, or they are feeling a little bit more in tune with, some of their feelings and emotions. And then they're able to kind of, uncover some things that are affecting their present day in their current relationship.
Do you feel like, how can I say this? So when they do come to see you, so with me, I'm going to give them some tools. So I give them some time to talk, right? And then I'm going to say, okay, these are some things that I think you need to do. So one of the things that's going to happen with me, I'm going to be a listener, but then I'm going to push you to do better. Because men deal with a lot. When we did our men's group at Now Church, and it's just a lot of stuff that guys came up with, legit stuff that just happened in their childhood, their dad not being there. I mean, it was all kinds of things that I was amazed. And then I'm like, okay, I get it, but let me push you to be a better husband. Let me push you to be a better father. I know your dad wasn't there, but let me push you. And so, because I've never been in a session with you, how much is pushing to change? Like, I get it. And how much is listening?
So I think for me, it's more listening than pushing, and allowing the person that you're with to come up with their own kind of process.
Mm-hmm.
And,
what do you mean about come up with their own type of process?
So figuring out like how to make the situation better. So providing them with a different perspective.
Okay.
And then allowing them to come up with the solution based off of the perspective that they have or how they've processed the situation. So again, there's some push, of course. But again, I think, with what we do, it's a lot better when they are able to come up with that solution on their own. So again, it'll feel a little bit more authentic for them, but then also too, they'll be more willing to try it. Mm-hmm. But again, sometimes the push is necessary in order for them to get to the goal that they say that they want to achieve.
Yeah, that's good. What about you, Dr. Mitchell?
The push definitely for men, because when I usually start a discovery call, very quick session, then we go to
what's a discovery call?
Where you find out about me, I find out about, what's going on, and basically we see if we're a good fit for each other or not.
Okay.
And so I like to term it like that, discovery call. There are tons of different ways to state that. And then the next session, I guess, is the real session. And for a lot of men, that for the very first time we speak, we're ready. And, if I could have 15 sessions right after that, I think that we could solve many of the world's problems.
Don't making me take notes on this podcast. Go ahead.
But by the time they schedule the first, I guess, real session, things change. And as we go on, things continue to change. And a lot of men, sometimes they fall off, so to speak. And if they're not, I guess, expressive or talkative during that first session, then I know that I'm going to have to do some pushing. And for a lot of men, for various reasons, we've been taught from an early age, boys don't cry. And so since boys don't cry, then boys don't express themselves and boys don't, show emotion. So here I am, I'm sitting across from someone that kind of looks like me. And he's kind of digging deep into me, who I am as a person. And I don't know if I really want to be open and share that. So I let them talk as much as possible. But a lot of times, I'm trying to just pull information from people. And so
So let me tell you. So what'll happen with me, because I've done it. It's not a flex. I know that was our thing for Father's Day. It's not a flex. But when I'm in a counseling session and I have two people in here, I guess because how long I've done it, from both people, I know what the other person is thinking. So let me give you an example. So if a woman says, "Hey, Pastor Nate, he hadn't taken me out on a date for 3 months. We haven't gone on a date. We haven't gone on to something." And the guy says, "Hey, Pastor Nate, I'm not a planner. That's not what I do. I don't plan stuff." So then in my mind, because I know what she's thinking, She's like, "Oh, you playing your fantasy football league. You got your fantasy football league together. You got the website up. You call and you getting on dudes, man, update your thing. Do your trade. You plan your fishing trip. You plan your things you do." So I know. So my push is, I know what she's thinking. Oh, I'm just not that important because he plans that. So then I have to say, now, man, is she important? Yeah, she important. So why, or if I have a communication problem. I know what she's thinking. I got a communication problem, this and this and this. When I get home, I'm tired. I'm saying, now, when you get home, are you having any kind of conversations on the phone with your boys about the game? You planning getting wings, you planning getting fries, you planning to go, what I'm saying? So then that's my push. And so I'm like, now I know that this relationship with this woman that you asked to marry is just as important, right? Yeah. Pastor Nate. Okay. Because I'm telling you what she's thinking, man. I'm telling you what she's thinking. It's just as important, isn't it? Yeah. So what you can do is start to think about how you think about those things, how you think about your wife, because you love her, right? I do love her. Now, sis, did you know he loves you? Yeah, I know he loves me, and I know he worked hard, but he's you get. So I'm trying to that's my push. Or with a son, if a guy tells me, well, my dad didn't tell me he loved me, he didn't tell me. He didn't give me hugs. So I'm like, you have to come out your comfort zone to do that for yourself. Well, Pastor Nate, ain't me. But that's what so that's my push. That's my push. Y'all can jump in there. That's my push.
I mean, and I think in that moment, you're providing them insight, right? Because they may not see that as, him getting wings or things like that. He may not see that as organizing and planning, right? But you're providing him insight into how the things that he's doing and how he can implement those same things into his relationship. So, I mean, that's basically what you're doing. You're providing insight to him. And it's like, okay, then it gets them thinking. Right. And, and then it, makes things happen.
What about you, Dr. Ian? That's my push.
Definitely. I think that's great because, you have related to something that they enjoy or something that they find fun. And so, I'm sure brothers plan for intimate moments. Right. I bet they can plan for that. So finding, I guess, whatever's fun in talking to your wife or hanging out with your wife, definitely would be the push. Yeah. So Kyra, spot on. Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this. So, one of the things you guys said is coming up with the process. Because they have an expectation for things to get better. And Dr. Mitchell, you said one of the things, and I want y'all both to jump on here, which I try to really share with guys. You said, they do really well because we both just said is those three things that they're usually coming to see one of us 3, 4. And one of the things that'll happen is I think sometimes men don't understand, like it's a process. So if it's like, if I said I'm sorry on Monday, like, why are we still talking about this Tuesday? or why are we still talking about, and there's still more dialogue that happen and more healing and more question. But and I usually tell them, like, listen, if this is going to work, you're going to have to be able to see this thing through the long run. It's not like I talked to Pastor Nate, I got it. He gave me 4 steps. I'm doing it. And then it's like they stop. Like, why are we still talking about this? Is that something you guys have found out when you talked about the expect things to get better in the process, and you saying how they can fall off sometimes? I want y'all to kind of delve into that.
Definitely. I think I had to check myself and my wife and my I'm a girl dad, my 2 daughters all the time. They'll come to me with a problem, and I'm like, just do this, this, and that, and the problem's solved.
Because we're fixers.
Because I'm a fixer, exactly.
Yeah.
And in their mind, they're like, no, that's like, that's never gonna work. Sometimes it does work, but with men though, we expect to, like I said, when we come to that first session, we're hot and heavy, and we want to know what's going to happen and what I need to do to get better. And I like to tell people, especially dealing with addiction, that your addictive voice may speak to you at any moment, and you could be doing great for months and months and months of time. But when your addictive voice speaks to you, how do you, what's your plan in place to control that or to go back the other way? Right. Because what happens, who's the boxer said it? Everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Mike Tyson.
Yeah. So what happens when you are depressed, or what happens when you're lonely, or what happens if you deal with infidelity issues and you get punched in the mouth? What's your plan then? Because the things that we've, I guess, talked about in therapy or in counseling, may not always, you have to do some work yourself to support that. Because here I am sitting across from you, and while I do have some solutions, and if you try the solutions, they possibly will work. But with anything, this takes time. You didn't just get into this state. So this happened over a series of time. And for you healing or getting better or recovering, that will also take time as well.
Kyra, I want you to jump on that, what he just said, therapy and counseling, mental health therapy, and you can tell me, because it's your field. I know what I do, but I'm not an expert in what you guys do, which is why I have y'all on here. Is there a difference between mental health counseling, therapy, and then counseling? Are they one and the same, or are they different?
So they're one and the same, but it always depends on your discipline. Okay. You have some social workers that are clinical social workers. You have some psychologists. You also have addiction specialists. So they're all one and the same. It's just the approach and how you deal with, whatever's going on or whatever's happening. There are some therapists that deal with symptomology, like they're not necessarily looking at the diagnosis, but they're looking at exactly what's happening. So, they're not looking at, someone's that's depressed. They're looking at someone who, has feelings of sadness, someone that's, withdrawing from family members and friends, not being able to have fun at things that they normally, would have fun. Mm-hmm. And so, to speak what Dr. Mitchell was saying, like, mental health can be very cyclical, where you're doing really well, things are going well, you're using these coping skills, and then something can happen, and then you use these same skills and they don't work anymore. Mm. But that doesn't say that if something comes up again, that you can't use those same coping skills. Again, it may work one week and then another week it doesn't. So that's why you have to continue, to do these things all the time. And it was funny when you guys were talking about fixers, because Laid Back Jermaine, he's one of those people where it's like, you know what? Let's talk about it and let's fix it right now. Yeah. But sometimes it's one of those things that there is a process, and it happens over time.
And that's one of the things that I had to do with Lady T, with just being a pastor and somebody who does counseling, because I had to learn when to just listen or when to give feedback. Mm-hmm. And I would, and like you said, with those coping mechanisms or those things that help me at the beginning, I had to say, hey, do you need me to listen, or are you looking for a solution? Because I can be a great listener right now. and just be somebody to hear you and da 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 and be there for you. Because my thing's like, listen, okay, see, this is what you need to do. Go down there, and it's kind of like, no, I had to take my pastoral fixer cap off. You're in an office for me for an hour. Okay, I heard you. Let me tell you what to do. Then just listening. And also as a listener, being okay with her not taking my advice of what to do.
Absolutely.
Because you didn't ask me to fix it. You asked me to listen. And I'd be like, see, don't ask me no more. Because and so in our almost 27 years of marriage, I've had to do that. Dr. Mitchell, what would you say is the difference between biblical counseling and mental health counseling? Because I don't believe they're one and the same.
Well, actually a lot of, church counselors or pastors that are counselors, in the mental health circle, especially amongst licensed individuals, they kind of get, there's a stigma around that.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
In our communities, though, they're so needed, especially.
Okay, let me ask you this. Let's stop there. I don't want you to jump over it. What do you think the stigma that pastors, and me and you are like this.
Yeah.
What do you think is the stigma that pastors have about mental health counseling?
Well, so
what have you heard on this?
Okay, so two things. So I think the pastors, because let's say in the Black community, they've been they have a very they're high on the totem pole. I'll say that, and because of their reach, they feel that because I speak with God and God speaks through me, I can handle all situations, and no matter what comes across my path, I'm prepared, to handle that. Coming from the licensed professional world, though, we feel that, hey, we've had clinical training, we have, master's degrees and doctoral degrees. And so we also have taken licensure exams. And so we are set up to be successful in this and to diagnose. And, here you are a pastor. Only thing you need to do to be a pastor is to have a church. Three of us right now, we could start our own church tomorrow and call ourselves pastors, and as well as anyone else can. But to be a licensed professional, you have to, I guess, meet those certain requirements.
Absolutely.
But going back though,
what, just right there. But you know what happens, and I'm not talking about all pastors, I'm talking about me. On the flip side, with pastors, somebody will say, hey, Pastor Nate, I would come talk to you, but I'm going to seek professional counseling. And I'm kind of like,
yeah,
what are you saying about me? I'm not a professional. Like, I've done this for you. Now I know everything is not in my wheelhouse. Which is the reason why, and both of you are on it here at Now Church, we have licensed clinicians in our church, and you or two are on that list, that people at Now Church get free counseling, and you guys do it for free. And I'm not saying, kudos to you guys, people that we have this list and we send them to you guys, and they come sit down and they talk to you, which is why I want to have you on it. So I don't feel like, and I'm just piggybacking off what you said, Doctor. I understand that everything is not just come see Pastor Nate and I'm going to fix it. One of the things that even with, and I just remember this, dealing with when somebody says, well, Pastor Nate, I went to see professional counseling. One of the things I had to talk to Bishop about was, how did he feel when people in his church go to get counseling from somewhere else? And he said, I think that's good, because sometimes they don't want to tell you not tell you everything, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
And so I think sometimes you have to get over yourself. Not that I had to, just a question you got to get over yourself. Like you said, I'm not the end all be all for everything. So I think, go ahead. I just wanted to go right there before I forgot.
Oh yeah. So real quick, but I was just saying,
no, you're good.
I'm thankful for the church and for pastors that do counsel, especially if they do it the right way, because they have been very beneficial to a lot of men. Because men they don't go to we don't go to the doctor. We minimize almost everything when it comes You as well. We minimize stuff. Our chest could be hurting, and we're like, oh, it's just heartburn, or
Yeah.
we could be sad for 3 months, and I'm just going through it right now. And so
Yeah.
you might be clinically depressed,
Right.
but you're just going through it now. And
okay, let's start right there. You're bringing up great. What's the difference? What does it mean to be clinically depressed? What does that mean?
I'm going to pass down the cures.
Okay.
It's okay. So when you start thinking about like depression or anxiety, a lot of people experience anxiety, right? A lot of people experience sadness. But then when you get to a point where it starts to affect your everyday life and everyday things that you are no longer able to do because of anxiety or because of depression, that is then when we start to think that there are more clinical issues. And one of the things that you were talking about, Pastor Nate, speaking to your spiritual, advisor and, talking to a professional, I really do think that they can coincide.
Okay. How so?
Because one of the things, especially with a licensed professional, there are some things that, you don't talk about or you don't bring up, or, and there's certain, like laws and protocols that you do have to stick with, right? However, with seeking pastoral counseling, sometimes you can be a little bit more open more so about what you say, P. Nate, right? And then that's something also too a little bit different about life coaching. I am on my way to, getting that license and, being that licensed therapist, because that's my training. But again, with life coaching, you can, there aren't as many boundaries, I guess, that you can cross, of course, in a way that's beneficial to, the person in the situation. But again, I think that they can coincide. And if they coincide the right way, I think, having both of those support systems are 100% beneficial.
Yeah, I want to tell you all about a time that I crossed a boundary, and everybody that's on here, this podcast, let me explain before you tune off. Say, oh Lord, Pastor Nate done crossed. I had a young man who came to me who had no insurance, but he had dyslexia. He was dyslexic. Very smart, graduated from USC, but he needed some help with his dyslexia. And he worked at a call center where took VIN numbers and addresses and phone numbers, and he had to take them from the phone call, translate them in the computer.
Wow.
So they could do like different types of works with different I think it was like coding and stuff like that. And he came to me and he was crying, but he had no insurance to pay to get the help that he needed. And his job was like, look, if you don't get better, like we're going to have to let you go. So, Pastor Nate, loving people, want to help him out. He can't get any other help. I had this dude coming to see me 3 days a week. And I think that one of the things they do for dyslexia, he was telling me, is a lot of reading, because he was teaching me there's a lot of reading and transcribing and writing and stuff like that. Man, I got this joker to get a notebook, and he came and sat at my desk, and I would act like I was on the phone. I said, hey, this is Benny Johnson from Youngstown, so-and-so, so-and-so. And the part that is going wrong on my whatever it was is H2. And I would write them down, and then I would take his paper and check it. And because I was just trying to help. He couldn't get any help anywhere else. He didn't have insurance and stuff like that. So I just want to throw it. That's when I crossed about, but I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what kind of resources there were and stuff like that. But I know you can't do that with mental health and clinical type of stuff.
Right. Yep.
Correct. And I guess that's where the mental health or counseling training comes in. We're very much in tune with referral systems and things of that nature. For pastoral counseling, oftentimes it could be free or low cost, and oftentimes professional counseling, in most situations there's a fee associated with that. Oftentimes people's insurance or self-pay. So another avenue where someone that needed help was able to get help in their time of need. I've counseled by being a counselor, you counsel people every day, every
Yeah.
moment of the day, at the grocery store, at
Yeah.
work, at home, at church. And so, all that's free or pro bono. Well,
Yeah.
most people
Yeah.
except at work, all that's free. But yeah, so but pastoral counseling, Christian based counseling, I think that's definitely has filled that void.
And I think, with pastoral or Christian counseling, I think I've already given an example about being able to have two people or having a person in there. And I can kind of think, after hearing it for about 5 minutes, I can say, okay, I see what the issue is. Y'all have a root problem, but you're giving me fruit stuff because, I don't think my wife is about to leave me because I left a bowl in the sink.
Yep.
There's a root problem there. That's the fruit. So let's kind of deal with this. I think what I like seeing, like I was looking at the video today of just the playback, and it's dudes that I know. The highest currency in the kingdom is a person. Highest currency in the kingdom is a person. Jesus gave his life for people, not things. So I think what I really love is to see, especially men, I see the change. Them come in the doors one way, and they're kind of like, because I was that dude, and they got their arms down, but to look at the playback, and they got their hands up there. I'm like, oh, man, like I know that dude. He's got his hands up. Like he's worshiping. And so what I try to do is not try, but what I do is I think your nature has to be broken, because the Bible says, therefore, if any man be in Christ, he or she is a new creation. The old is gone and the new has come. And so I think we have like strongholds and we have yokes of every things that happen in our life. And I don't even think it's people. A lot of times people like to equate it to people who've been locked up, or, we think about the low hanging fruit
Right.
in the church, and those are the people who need Jesus. But what about the people who grew up in a pretty good household and mom and dad was there? And I'm not saying that big up in myself, but in order to be like, you just need your nature broken of who Nate is, so God can build on what he started. So my thing is nature. Like, let me break your nature where you can worship. Let me break your nature. I mean, y'all know every Sunday I'm crying. I'm crying. And that wasn't me before salvation, but God broke something in me. And so I think that's the beginning process. But then I think that there is some trauma that has happened. I think there are some things that have come up in their life. And I think that's where mental health counseling and pastoral counseling can go hand in hand. I don't think I can just say, cast down every thought and every imagination that are exalted. And that's scripture. Cast down every thought and every imagination that are try to exalt itself against the knowledge of God. Because God, we know that you're able. I get it. But what happens when people have some clinical and mental health stuff where that stuff stays there? You get what I'm saying? It's a difference between I had a situation, I'm going to cast that down, and it stays there. And I think that's where the combination of the two, you get what I'm saying? Y'all want to speak on that?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go, Dr. Mitchell.
Oh, so one of the not the first thing I do, but in the first maybe 3-4 sessions is I assign homework to everybody. And one of the homework assignments is to write a letter to your former self. Okay. And so in doing that, the purpose behind that is to just write a letter for me, and most of the time when you were teenager, shortly before then, forgiving yourself for what happened and the fact that it was beyond your control, and to allow you a reflection point and the ability to move forward. Just as Christ has forgiven us, we forgiven ourselves. It's hard to do. And for me, it's very hard because we live with regret. We regret so many things that we did do and things that we didn't do. And in writing this letter to your former self, I mean, it's been one of the most, I guess, powerful tools that I have used, because sometimes men, feel comfortable reading it back to me. And when they read it back to me, the tears just start flowing because they have had the opportunity to sit with this and to think about some things that the trauma that you just mentioned. Think about the trauma that has affected them and has, I guess, molded them to who they are today, and to also see their role or the lack of their role in that situation. From father issues to sexual abuse to drug abuse to all different types of things. Even when they've been the aggressor, but the fact that they are able to forgive themselves, like I said, just as Christ forgives us, has been so powerful for me. And if men can get to that session, then they're ready to open up and talk then, because they're their most vulnerable state. Here I am sitting across from another man, and I'm just crying.
Yeah.
And, but once they get there though, like you say, it's almost like they've been broken, or
Yeah.
that, or the nature, they've been broken. Yes.
Yeah, that's good. That's dope. I love that. What about you, Kyra?
One of the things that you had asked us at the very beginning, like, why do they come, right? And
Mhm.
so, we kind of all talked about those three things are the reason why they came. But after you start talking, sometimes that's not even the real reason that they came. It's like,
Wow.
the reason that they came was because, they wanted to be able to communicate, or no one communicated with them as a child. So this is kind of, what they're doing. And
Yeah.
so you get to that point where the reason that you thought you were coming in, there's something a little bit deeper. There's another level that you have to get to in order to kind of make those other things feel a little bit different. One of the exercises that I use sometimes when talking to people is, if you woke up one morning and you knew that something was different, what would be different? Like, not what you look like, not, what the scene was, but how would you feel, and what thing made you feel that way? Like, what would it look like? What would it feel like? And a lot of people can't even answer that.
Mhm.
But once you get to that layer and dig a little bit deeper, it's like, oh, this is why I'm having these communication issues, or oh, this is why, I'm not able to cry, or oh, this is. And so it's always kind of like a aha moment, or a, oh, I thought I was coming in for this, but this is really what we need to be talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So that helps.
Yeah, that's good. With me, as you guys know, I'm a really good communicator because that's what I do.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that that's not a flex, but I can speak woman really well because I've been married for a long time.
Mhm.
But one of the things I understood, and this is why I go to Lady T for a lot of stuff, I never knew how to speak little girl
Hmm.
because I didn't grow up with girls. It's three boys in my household. So then I have this daughter who I adore, Reagan Davis, but I did not know how to communicate with a little girl.
Mhm.
And so I would say something and she start crying. And I'm like, yo, what just happened? And Lady T be like, Nate, she's a girl. And I'm like, I don't, okay. All I said is, hey, did you clean up your room? And she's like, yeah, Nate, she's a girl. So she had to teach me how to talk to girl because I loved her so much and I wanted to be able to communicate. And so that's where I come in with men. I can communicate woman because I've been married for a long time.
Right.
And so let me teach you how, one of the things I tell people is I have these dogs that I love and they are not human. And I know all their wants and needs because I love them.
Mm-hmm.
And I stretch myself to understand them. And so I try to get men I try to stretch to understand like this person that you want to communicate well with. Another question that I have for you guys, because how much do you think after a couple sessions, because you built a rapport, a relationship with them, that you're able to give them some good stuff that you may not have if you did not have that relationship?
Well, Definitely. That's what I said. The discovery call, first thing first, because if you and I are not, I guess if we don't have chemistry, it's going to be hard for us to have productive sessions because you got to trust me. You got
Mhm.
to be vulnerable.
Big
You got
thing with me.
exactly. You got to not only listen, but also take my advice and apply what I'm saying. So, your relationship with your therapist or counselor has to be something that's solid, something that's sacred. That's why there's so many confidentiality and client rights, rules and regulations, because,
Right.
this is probably one of the more intimate relationships that a person will have with a person that's not a family member or a friend, and I think that's so key. Definitely.
Yeah. What
Absolutely.
about
Yeah.
you, Kara?
Yeah, no, I mean you're coming to talk to a complete stranger about some of the most vulnerable points of your life. And so if you don't have that relationship, then it's difficult. I always tell people, if this isn't comfortable for you, sometimes you do have to sit in things that are uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
Because you sit into it until it becomes uncomfortable. But if there's a point where you don't feel like, it's helpful for you or you're getting somewhere, it's okay to say, this isn't working, but let me help you find someone
Mhm.
that can help you to be a little bit more vulnerable. That relationship is definitely key. Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things I do if it's somebody who I've counseled for a while, and I don't know if this is good practice, but I say, okay, you're going to tell me something about about you. You know what? I'm going to tell you something about me because now we're in a covenant relationship. So you have a trust that if I say something about your stuff, you know something about Pastor Nate. They're like, word. And it could be something that has to do with me, not any kind of sin or anything like that, but just something maybe they're going through. And I said, okay, well, while we're sharing, I'm going to share you something about me. And they're kind of like, oh man, I can trust this dude. And they're like, well, why did you do that? I said, because if you think, I'm going to tell your business, then now you know something about me. I try to tell them once they come behind those doors, like your personal situation is not a soap opera for me and Lady T at home. Somebody may say, hey, Lady T, I talked to Pastor Nate yesterday. She's like, oh, okay. Like he didn't tell you.
Mhm.
And I'm like, no, we don't gossip about your personal things. Because just like with you guys, once they come behind these doors in the court of law, I think I know this from watching Law and Order. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong. Like a licensed clinician, they can't just get up there and start talking.
Absolutely. Yeah, their confidentiality.
It's
You
confidentiality.
sign a piece of paper that
Yeah,
you cannot disclose anyone's personal
Mhm.
health information unless you feel like they're going to harm themselves or harm someone else. And even there's
yeah,
stipulations around that that guideline too. So
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah. But I think this has been awesome. Y'all are great. I've learned so much more about what you both do. I'm excited for everybody who is going to see this. The people who are watching now, I think it's been very helpful, and I appreciate you guys volunteering your time, not just to be on this podcast, but to do what you do with mental health counseling in the church, and you do it for free. I mean, this is one of the services that we provide to our members of Now Church. We don't just kind of outsource y'all, but if it's something that I can't do or it's not in my wheelhouse, I'll point them to you and a whole group of other people who do it with you guys. So I just want to let you know, I think y'all are awesome. I think y'all are dope. I think y'all brought a lot of clarity to men's mental health awareness month and why it's become a phenomenon. And I don't say it in a big way like it's trendy, but why men are willing to say, I need some help. And I hope it makes them better fathers, husbands, and men of God and men of the community. And so I think y'all are dope. Y'all have anything y'all want to end it off by saying? I took all my notes.
I just wanted to say, thank you for having me. Kyra, it was a pleasure hanging out with you. You seem to be a great clinician, and I think that you have the ability to help a lot of people. And just to the men out there, don't let fear, stop you from, I guess, seeking the help that you need. A lot of people fear of being judged. Somebody's going to judge you anyways, or fear the stigma. Stigma's coming anyways. But if you reach that point, then please seek out just
What's that point? What's that point?
Well, for just like with trauma is different for everyone. That point is different for everyone. But where you feel like I just can't do this anymore, especially if you're thinking of harming yourself or harming someone else, definitely seek help. But yeah, whenever you get to the point where you're like, man, this pressure is just becoming too much. Exactly that song that you talked about, Pastor Nate. Whenever you're at that stage, please speak to someone.
Carl, what's trauma to you? What? No, not what's trauma to you, but how can a man identify and say, hey, you know what? I'm suffering some trauma. I need to go talk to a mental health counselor. I need some help. What's that? What are some triggers or what are some mental notes they can take to let themselves know I'm at that point?
So I like to think about trauma as something that you can vividly think about all the time. And it's something that is not necessarily something in a positive light. Things that have happened in the past, and you can remember how you felt, you remember what you wore, you remember the people that were surrounding you. That to me says that you haven't processed the things that that have happened to you or happened around you. And again, at any point, men, if you want to have somebody to talk to, then use the resource. The word crazy or the word I'm not strong, it's okay. It's okay to talk with someone. I mean, it's just another form of exercise. You exercise your physical body, you need to exercise your mind. So let's do it.
That's good. Now I said I was gonna let y'all get out of here, but this y'all are just so good. And I have some so what would you see as, I've seen it before, but I have this saying, me and my mentor, I'm having a bad day. No, let's go back. I'm having a bad moment. Let's say that's tier 1. I'm having a bad day, or I need some help because this is something I can't deal with. Can y'all talk about the difference between, and I know everybody looks different, but I just want to help somebody to be able to identify, hey, you know what? I'm just having a bad day. I'm having a bad moment. This is something that upset me. This something frustrated me. Something happened on my job. Then I'm having a bad day, and then I need some help. Anybody want to jump on there and talk about, and you both can talk about what all 3 different ones look like?
Yeah, well, it's funny that oftentimes our bad moments, turn into, may result in a bad life or definitely a bad stretch of time. But when you're at the point where your bad moments are happening all the time and your bad days are happening 5-6 times a week, you definitely are at the point where you want to, I guess, speak to someone. And when I say speak to someone, it could be someone licensed like Kyra or myself, or a community helper, pastoral counseling, someone that can connect you, or admit first will listen, but then also someone that can connect you to the right treatment. Because oftentimes it's just like a toothache. Before we have the abscess, my best friend's a dentist, and so he always tells me every toothache I had, you had some warning signs before we had to do the root canal. And here we are, we got the root canal, we got this expensive bill. But before that, your tooth was hurting just a little bit. Then it got progressively worse, but you ignored it though. And so now here we are, something that's very minor, could have been, I guess, not necessarily rectified, but we could at least dealt with it when it was minor versus having to deal with it later on down the road when it's much major.
Carl, what would you say? Bad.
So when you're when your
And
bad moment starts to impact your everyday life, where you can't get over that moment or you can't process that moment,
mm,
that's then when you should probably start to talk to someone.
okay,
Yeah.
I think that's dope. I I said I was gonna let y'all go. I had another question, but I'm going. Yeah, I will ask you. So, I was reading this article because when we do these podcasts, you know, there's some authentic, not some, but there's authentic conversation that takes place. But then I just kind of look at things, and I don't know if y'all remember the running back um, for the Baltimore Ravens, Ray Rice, and how he and his wife had that altercation. It wasn't his wife then, but that altercation on the elevator. And he was saying that as a young boy, he had to be a man because that's what he was told as a young boy. And he had to provide for his family and and this and that. Then he said when he got in the NFL, he became a boy. He got that money and he wanted to do the things that he couldn't do as a child. And he was saying that bad moment on the elevator with his wife, that he's gotten the help and he understands what he did. But it just kind of changed the trajectory of his life. And he was kind of like, I'm glad it happened. Not that he hit his wife, but
Right.
something was going to happen sooner or later because he had never gotten the help. But then you think too, having a daughter, you thinking that there was, and both of you got daughters, that a woman had to go through that. You get what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like, hey, Ray Rice got the help he needed, but there was a person that was hurt
Mhm.
involved, that he's speaking, and he said that now he takes his daughter with him to these type of things. Have y'all ever kind of dealt with a situation like that where it's like, yeah, he got the help, but like there's another victim in this circumstance? Have y'all ever dealt with that? Is that something y'all don't want to touch, or I don't know?
So I think, just with mental health in general.
And I'm not judging Ray Rice. I'm not.
Yeah, of course. No, I wouldn't have. No, I didn't take that away
I just
from
want
him.
to be clear for everybody who's watching. I was
Oh,
just doing some research.
so again, when you're thinking about mental health, social, emotional well-being, physical, I mean, it encompasses everything, right? But again, just like with mental health, like it encompasses everybody around you. So your coworkers, your family members. And so again, when you are looking at, someone who has, some of the challenges that, he was having similarly, like you do have to, look at it systematically. So you look at everyone that is around this person to ensure that, whatever they may be dealing with as well is being looked at as well. Because again, it's systematic. Your coworkers are affected, your family members are connected, your immediate family. And so again, while again, it's good that, he's working on his mental health or whomever is working on their mental health, but again, there are people who is affected by that, and then they need to go through their own process as well as a result of the other person's mental health challenges.
Definitely.
Dr. Mitchell, let me ask you this. So what do men usually say how they feeling lonely? Like being around so many people, being around a family, being around their kids, being around their coworkers, being around their friends, and being in environments where they seem like they're having a great time and they're smiling and they're looking at the game. Like what do they say that loneliness feels like, that nobody knows, or not to be seen? Because you see a lot of people that are seen and they feel like they're not being seen. Like what kind of situations have you dealt with men and say, I feel lonely, I don't feel appreciated, I don't feel seen? Like you were saying, a lot of times on social media posts, it's kind of like with men, they say, we make it happen. We're gonna get it done. We da 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 da, but nobody sees how we feel inside. I want you to speak to that, and then I promise you I'm gonna let y'all go. I'm sorry, y'all just with this wealth of knowledge.
Well, for the men that will, I guess, share that, I think it's probably one of the worst feelings that they ever felt. Men are able to absorb pain. We play sports, contact sports. We fall down and get hurt and keep going. We play with a torn ACL. We walk off instead of getting carted off. So because of us, being able to absorb so many, I guess, adverse feelings or whatever, it kind of becomes ingrained in us. And that's why you spoke on it a little bit. That's why I despise, telling young men you're the man in the house at 9 years old or 10 years old, because there's some development that, and psychologically, that, your brain is altered because of that. But for those that do share that, I mean, it's really, I guess, probably one of the worst feelings that they have, because they feel that no one understands them. They're supposed to be on the front line for the family, for the wife, for the kids, paying bills. You hear something fall down at nighttime, you got to jump up and go see about that. But
so that's loneliness?
No.
Okay.
No.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Mitch.
I'm just saying that men are supposed to be there for everyone.
Okay.
But when it's time for someone to be there for them, a lot of times they have a hard time expressing that. And when they do express it, they feel that people cannot relate to that.
Gotcha.
And when talking with mental health counselors, not many Black men are in this profession. Not many men are in this profession alone, especially not men of color. And so here I am. I'm talking, like you said, you had to learn. You can speak woman now. You can speak, girl. You can always speak men, but having to learn how to express myself is key and paramount, because, if you don't learn that, then you will most likely remain lonely or feel alone, because you cannot, I guess, let anyone else know what's going on, or let anyone else inside your circle. So that's why I say, I think that people feel when they say I'm lonely, I think it's really a dangerous place for a lot of men, because, we're people that oftentimes, we like to socialize or hang around groups or be connected to other people in some sort of ways. But, when men become lonely, I think that's a pretty dire strait.
Kyra, let me ask you this. I don't want you to give them all me, but how hard is it? How hard have you seen it's been for men who say they feel like they're lonely or not seen? How hard is it for you as somebody who does counseling to get them to step out of that box? Like, is it not one session, like, is it one conversation, but what's like the final push where you get them to say, okay, I'm going to do it?
Mm-hmm. So it's never been maybe one or two sessions, right? It's, again, over time. And so one of the things that I like to do is, do like an illustration. So, think about how someone would feel if they were in a room full of 1,000 people and the room was completely quiet and you were screaming and no one would hear you.
Mm-hmm.
What that would feel like. And so, again, I try to give illustrations a lot. So, again, you can imagine what it looks like. Then, again, to feel that and then process what that feeling looks like. And then to be able to say, okay, why do you think people aren't hearing you? You're in a room full of 1,000 people. You're screaming. The room is totally silent, but no one can hear you. Why do you think no one can hear you? And so that's when you start to, again, delve into, okay, well, maybe they can't hear me because I'm really not screaming. I'm just opening my mouth, but nothing is coming out. And so, again, like, you process with them, why they believe, they feel lonely. And then that's when you start digging into those layers. And then after that, like, after you get, talking and processing, like, it's really powerful. It's very powerful. It's awesome.
Y'all are dope. And I'm going to stop this because I could do this all, because I like learning new stuff, I know what I do as far as counseling, but I just like picking brains and learning new stuff. And I salute y'all because you're excellent at what you do. And, the Coping Center with Dr. Charles Ian Mitchell and Your Path, Your Journey, Healing Health, PLLC with Kyra Royale. If men, I encourage you to reach out to them. These are two people who are doing it, and I'm so proud of them and proud to be connected to them. And I'll end this by saying, I think, Dr. Mitchell said something that just gave me an illustration of how to end it. When somebody gets hurt in some form of competition, you look for, the person who's torn their ACL. We applaud Kobe for going to shoot that last free throw with a torn ACL. We applaud the guy who's going to be out for the season, who gets up and goes. We applaud Paul Pierce for coming back in the wheelchair. And as a former coach, and as somebody who's trying to win, and sometimes what we can say as coaches, and as a culture, is my 90 or my 70% is better than somebody else's, or I'm going to play 60 or 70%. And I'm always saying, I don't want your 60 or 70%. I want you at your best. Let's get somebody else in and get you at your best. And I think we can admonish and encourage men. Don't play hurt. Don't do dad hurt. Don't do father hurt. Don't do friend hurt. Yep, you're showing up. You're there for that person, and we're applauding you for showing up. But we want you to get this mental health counseling that you need, or the counseling you need, because we want you at 100%. We don't want you just with trauma and things that you dealt with, and you just playing and you hurting and you screaming and nobody's hearing it. We want you to get that help, and we want you on the field. We want you on the court. We want you on the baseball diamond. We want you to wherever you compete. We want you 100%. And we believe that mental health counseling helps you to play not hurt, but play at your very best. We want to encourage you to get some counseling if you need it. And again, I want to thank Dr. Mitchell and Kyra for being on here today. Y'all are awesome. And we'll see y'all again for podcast number 4 of The Pursuit. See you later.